Invite other people to the stage. And ladies first, so I would like to invite Leah Schmidt from Centrifuge to the stage. She is the product partnerships manager of Centrifuge, and Centrifuge has recently introduced a project called Tin Lake, which is, I think, quite exciting for our topic today, and I think you will also talk a little bit about that later. Next, I would like to invite Raphael, because we all saw him already, right? And yeah, I think he doesn't need that much in the introduction. He's the business development manager of Gnosis, which, for instance, makes quite decent multi-sig wallets, right?
So they say.
Yeah, so they say. We already talked a little bit about MakerDAO, and that's why I would like to invite Gustav Arendhoft, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, to the stage. And he's also the business development representative of MakerDAO. And now I would like to invite two, let's say, bridge builders to the classical finance ecosystem. And first of all, I would like to invite Peter Großkopf from Börse Stuttgart. Sorry. Okay, then let's go to the next guest. Then to a guy with a really nice first name, Philipp Bär from Bitwala. And he is the Chief Growth Officer of Bitwala. Bitwala is first of all the organizer of this event, and as the first crypto bank, so to say, it's quite well known, and as I said, I think quite important as a bridge to the DeFi ecosystem. What I found quite nice at the introduction to this evening was to talk about killer apps. Because I think one really exciting thing about DeFi is that it's not one single killer app, even though, for instance, MakerDAO is quite a huge one in the ecosystem. You have more a network of different services which interact with each other, and yeah, so that the sum can be bigger than its parts, as the proverb says. And in that sense, I wanted to ask the audience, where do they see their, let's say, specific value within the DeFi ecosystem, and how the other guys within the panel help their case? So I start simply here. We have to make some sharing economy regarding the microphone.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to stick to the multi-sig in this case. So I think the application, or well, the role it plays in DeFi is quite evident. So it's basically, yeah, more advanced self-custodial solution, right? So one thing we didn't mention in the introduction that I think is key in DeFi and in most apps is that most of these decentralized applications are like self-custodial, right? So you don't have any external entity or someone that controls your funds. You have full control over them. So yeah, what I believe the multi-sig does is that it enables like safe fund management, so you can then interact with different apps and maybe like open a CDP in Maker, hold your DAI there, or trade in a decentralized exchange, right?
Yeah, and I think you could already see quite nicely the collaborations here. We're actually also collaborating with the MakerDAO, and we're working on, we have a little bit of a different angle. So what Centrifuge does is it allows businesses to tokenize their assets and bring them on chain, such as financial documents, invoices, etc. And the collaboration that we are currently working on actually helps to bring the DeFi ecosystem a little bit out of its crypto niche and more into, like, helps more real world adoption, and like actually helps businesses to access the potential of DeFi by building the infrastructure of next to ETH in as collateral on MakerDAO, and then allowing tokenized assets such as invoices, for example. So you see the synergies here quite well. What I also want to highlight with Gnosis is they have really nice UX, and one of the big hurdles still is for adoption, and to actually make all these projects function together is nice user interfaces and how people actually use it.
Yeah, so at Maker, we really see ourselves as kind of like just like the protocol layer. So we really want to be the bottom financial layer that kind of like power all of these applications that then run on top of us. So whether that's like the Gnosis like multisig or as well with Centrifuge, but in general we really have kind of like this approach that like of course we have like a few consumer-facing products ourselves. So you saw Oasis. But like the really big thing is about having this like ecosystem that uses the products that we build. So currently we have around 500 different partners that all of them uses DAI or vaults in like one way or another. So that's really like the approach that we are taking to like reach like the end consumer. So we have a lot of partnerships in the space, and we have kind of like manifested ourselves as the biggest product within decentralized finance. And I think a large part of that is because that we really just like with DAI, we really just look to like power everything else. So I mean, of course, we want to be part of building out the products, which will take adoption to the next level. But in reality, we actually just want to be able to provide our partners with the ability to create financial products and services for their end users. So like some of the places that I'm really excited about working in is emerging economies. Places where people don't have access to traditional finance. I myself used to live in Argentina, which is actually one of our biggest markets as well now. And like out there, something which is like a digital dollar that also earns you like a pretty high interest rate, that's like a really, really awesome product, right? We then work with local partners and entrepreneurs and like incentivizes them to build these products and services, so we can actually get like the outreach like on a big, like created like on a local level. So that's really like where we see ourselves like in the industry in like the years to come, as like kind of like the main product that can like help people build these products and services for the end user.
Cool. And Ben already talked a little bit about Bitwala. I want to zoom out a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot of value created in DeFi. We haven't talked too much about the actual use cases and the value yet, but whether it's loans, collateralized loans, whether it's stable coins. There's a lot of stuff happening there, and we actually just crossed $1 billion locked up in decentralized protocols. That's great, but when you think about the world's wealth and the hundreds of trillions of dollars, 99.999% that are locked up in the traditional financial system, we need a way to move that over in DeFi and let that money or value flow into the decentralized financial system. And so Bitwala is really there to bridge the gap between traditional finance, decentralized finance, and allow end users to enter the space, enter crypto, interact with DeFi in a secure, simple, and compliant way. I think we'll talk a little bit more about regulation and compliance later, or not, but obviously it's a very important topic, and so that's something we're tackling. And most importantly, from the familiarity of your bank account. So everyone is familiar with the bank account. Most of the people in the Western world here obviously have a bank account, so we really think that this is the entry point towards decentralized finance.
Yeah, thanks first of all for the introductions. One topic which already was speaking implicitly was the decentralization, and DeFi has in its name already decentralization. However, if we look at the projects and if we remember the history of the crypto ecosystem, we see that we see a paradigm shift. What was back in the day, 2016, 2017, always decentralized all the things. I think right now we talk a little bit more about the smart decentralization, which we, for instance, see regarding Bitwala. And in that sense, we have there oftentimes this the interaction between centralized players and decentralized protocols. And there I wanted, first of all, give the mic back again to Philip, but of course, if I ask somebody directly, you guys are always free to intervene. How this interaction works, where are some stepping stones, and what is the benefit besides getting some customers who like DeFi for Bitwala, so to say.
Yeah, good question. I mean, there's always been, especially in 2017, a big discussion, decentralized versus centralized. I actually think that debate isn't so strong anymore now. Of course, decentralization matters, but it's important to understand what it means, especially in finance. And in finance, essentially, it means replacing the trust layer, which right now are financial intermediaries, with software, essentially. So, and then we need to think, what's the value of doing that? Well, there's obviously a lot of values in financial intermediaries, or some of them, especially when it comes to compliance and safety. But on the other hand, we can do things a lot more efficient with software, with protocols, and we can create lower cost, faster transactions. We can create new innovative products. And so I think that's really where the discussion of decentralization needs to go. My other point is, if we look at the last decade, we saw fintechs, centralized fintechs, create huge value, right? And really disrupting the financial industry, whether it's bank accounts, N26, right? Building a great user interface, essentially distributing the distribution of bank accounts in a new way, right? We saw the same with trading, Trade Republic in that space, or even international payments like TransferWise. But the actual financial products are still the same. The infrastructure is largely the same. TransferWise already did some interesting things there, but the infrastructure is the same, intermediaries are the same, and ultimately the financial products are the same. And this is where I think decentralized finance can really add a lot of value. But ultimately, I think it's the combination of both. I think the big opportunity is centralized fintech businesses and organizations building on top of really scalable, decentralized protocols, and I think this is where Bitwala is really well placed.
I just quickly want to add here that like this is also like what we see a lot now, right? I mean, we like if like this strategy that we have, especially like here at Maker within like the business and like the partnership side of things, which is where I work, is that I mean like right now we're kind of like been like a given in like the crypto space for a while, specifically in the Ethereum community. And you know like there like the amount of work we have to like continue to establish ourselves there is not that big, right? But where we look, if you look at like the products that we actually have at Maker, they make a ton of sense in like a fintech sense. So like we really want to take like the crypto space and then be like sitting like intersphere between like finance, fintech and cryptocurrencies, right? And offering our products and services through like the fintech front ends and the fintech UI UX. That's really like the sweet spot, right?
Maybe just following the line here. Okay. I think it depends on what you want to achieve. So actually I want to mention another project that has been in the DeFi ecosystem, so which is called Uniswap, which is basically an exchange. And just recently, I think it was a few weeks back, when some of the countries, or like I think it was North Korea, Iran, were geo-blocked. So the official Uniswap interface was not accessible through their website. So the beauty of having the protocol not running on one centralized server but on a decentralized system is that just anyone else can pop up and create an interface that can be used from any country and then just run on the current state and not just have another silo built. So I think that is a really good showcase of what potential is, what the potential can be if there is a decentralized component here.
Thanks. So, well, regarding this kind of like dispute between how decentralized the product must be and whatnot, I think it depends a lot like in the use case, and I think in a lot of cases like it's user experience what tends to be a little bit more difficult when it comes to like highly decentralized applications. But on the other side, I do think that this is going to change at some point. I mean, we see a lot of teams really excelling in doing, for example, a common issue that people complain about, or like a UX thing, is losing your private key in your wallet, right? So Argent and us and a few other projects that are like kind of like at the forefront of finding new solutions for like recovering your wallets have designed things that are almost fully decentralized that let you recover your wallets. Like for example, social recovery mechanisms, or like phone protocol based like location where you can like unlock your wallet if you lose your private key by just like going to different places. So I think at this point, yeah, we benefit with with some like centralized points of entry. But in a point where I politely disagree with Philip, is that, yeah, I think like what we see a lot in like the siloed or centralized like software world is that we see that some project or some company will kind of like overtake a whole industry, and then they become sort of like the behemoth of that given service, right? So what I think like decentralization aims to do is like, it's not that this like cool new bank is now like giving you a better UX, so everybody flows there and now everybody has their account there. But it's more like, okay, there's this protocol that actually nobody owns, and it just has like a set of incentives, and then everybody can use it, right? So to kind of like close this, like I believe, yeah, for UX, it's good to have like at this point like some centralized components, but I do think that in the future, decentralized UX will be better, and eventually it will make sense to be highly decentralized.
Yeah, okay, there. Also, yeah?
Yeah, a question about decentralization and you know the word we all hate, regulation, because regulators, they don't always necessarily care about technical decentralization. If there is an apparent company that's promoting a certain technology, that's good enough for them in many cases. So what's our, like Bitwala, obviously you guys are regulated, have to deal with a bunch of regulations. I assume you have to deal with a new travel rule and those kinds of things. Unless a new travel rule with a travel rule, which isn't new at all. But there's rumors about a lot of other kinds of decentralized companies, decentralized protocols, and I'm looking like at you, Gustav, and I don't know enough about Centrifuge to be able to look at you, but a lot of the DeFi ones are kind of being eyed right now. What kind of risks do you guys see realistically, not like hopefully, but like realistically, what kind of risks do you guys see, and is anything you guys are doing to help fix some of those issues?
You mean regarding regulatory issues or technical issues? Just to
regulatory.
Okay. Then who wants to answer first?
Probably me. Yeah, so I mean, I think like the biggest risk for us, like as I mentioned before, is that we really aim to be this like public infrastructure, right? So and I believe that like right now we are not 100% decentralized, but like over time, I truly believe that, you know, we also have a plan to wind down the foundation over time. So I believe that like at the time where the Maker protocol itself would gain so much traction that like regulators will be, you know, really looking after us. I think that, you know, we might already be like in the process of winding the foundation down, and the protocol we just run as this public infrastructure. However, as also mentioned before, is that right now we have, you know, like a little bit more than 500 companies that uses our tech in you know, I don't even know how many jurisdictions, but you know, like a lot, like all over Europe, South America, Asia. We have several countries in Africa, you know, the US and so on. And like the biggest like risk that we probably see is that like if our partners start getting in trouble, right? Because like our partners is everything from, you know, like very small companies with just like one guy in like a basement somewhere, you know, building like some kind of like web portal that does something. We also had, you know, like a pretty incredible story about these two guys from India who did InstaDApp at like a hackathon, and they just raised like $2.1 million, I think, from Consensus by creating like an arbitrage tool between Maker and Compound, which is another big decentralized protocol. So like when we have people like that who, you know, like puts off like their livelihood and, you know, like does what they can to build products and service on top of it, we also need to make sure that like we don't believe that they will get in trouble. So we actually we help our partners. We like our legal team is in contact with everyone that wants to help. We also work with external counsel in most of the major jurisdictions that we are in. So like regulation is something that we spend like an incredible amount of time, energy, and money on, making sure that, you know, we at least try to stay on the forefront of things. Whether that's something we can guarantee, I cannot say, but like we are really doing a lot in that front.
Some other guy? You wanted to ask something. Yeah, as you see, of course, you can ask questions. The people in the background, unfortunately, perhaps I might not see them, but I hope that the other guys here can then notify me.
You're also allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, of course.
So my YouTube my YouTube yoga teacher said I should remain more in the present. And in December I put some non-fungible tokens on OpenSea. And that's a question for Raphael. When I realized what you're doing, you know, I remembered a problem that I encountered on OpenSea, which is that, you know, I wanted to buy something from someone, but he never returned my call. So how does it work? You know, if you have like the multi-sig kind of setup, how can I remind someone that, you know, they're due to sign something, maybe? And I don't have their email address. And speaking of signing, that's a question for Philip I never got to ask yet, but wouldn't it be also possible, instead of having the Fox thing with the MetaMask, to have like a Bitwala nice logo to sign? You know, would be kind of cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the second question, because I also noted that one.
Okay, well, first off, OpenSea is completely unrelated to like the multi-sig or to Gnosis.
Yeah, but this is
so just like, well, I mean, if you were, at least in the context of the multi-sig, right? Because yeah, I understand, I also placed a bid on OpenSea for some ENS names. And well, I think it was more because my bid was very low, but yeah, a lot of times they don't answer, right? So in the context of the multi-sig, I don't think like, for example, if Centrifuge or whoever here was going to like have like their funds on a multi-sig, I think they would never make a signer someone that they cannot reach, right? And then I also think it's not very convenient to have, you know, like 256 signers in a multi-sig, right? So,
But it's
yeah.
possible, right? It's possible?
Yeah, it
you
is
said
possible.
N. You said N.
Huh?
You said N
Yeah,
people.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Well, maybe not N, but there's actually 256 restrictions
All right.
for signers. But yeah, so I mean, regarding OpenSea, I think the only way to do it is I really like, for example, what AirSwap does. I don't know if you're familiar with AirSwap, but it's a non-custodial exchange for like Ethereum assets. So basically, you do OTC trades there, no? So like you want to exchange whatever amount for another amount. You just get like this special like escrow address, and then two people like sign transactions and send stuff over, right? So, for example, they have like a very active like chat box where people talk, and then you won't just like post a link that will be forgotten, no? So, if I could recommend something for OpenSea, I would say like do something similar. So, Philip? No, well, if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I can do that. It's just like from our experience, I mean, for example, with Centrifuge, I mean, ideally, well, to maybe speak to you on what Centrifuge does is basically we're involved by the financial supply chain, where you can exchange documents in a secure, private, and verifiable way, and then use those on-chain representations to access capital in DeFi. And for example, here, of course, we want everybody to just quickly onboard. But at least at the beginning, we're helping. We're building a community. We're helping people to onboard, to use it, educate. So I mean, there are people available, and it is just it is not. Of course, anybody can join, and it is in a sense anonymous. But the open source community is a very collaborative, open. Community to build together. So.
I can talk a little bit about the Fox. Well, I guess I don't know if everyone knows exactly what we saw here, but essentially that's a wallet, a web browser-based wallet that allows you to store value, assets, and also sign transactions, right? So Bitwala also has a wallet. We launched an Ethereum wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet. Right now it doesn't have smart contract compatibility, it's something we're working on, so it will essentially be very similar to a MetaMask. But I think the beauty in the space, in the DeFi space, there are actually tools that we can, or protocols we can build on top. So there's something called Wallet Connect that allows dApps, decentralized apps, to connect to your wallet. So if we don't necessarily need to build something like that ourselves, we can just integrate this into a wallet and then start interacting with decentralized applications, etc. So the beauty really is we don't need to rebuild everything ourselves, but we can work and build on top of other products and protocols.
can I add something quick? If you want to like open parts of your repo, recently we did the integration for Wallet Connect for synthetics. Like we do that quite often. So if you open a part of your repo and you want help, let us know.
Yeah, that's quite nice. I will come in a second to the question of you guys, but I have also prepared some questions. I think you guys deserve to hear them. So just 2 questions I would like to ask Leah and Gustav. We talked already a little bit about risk, and we talked about regulatory risk, and that we cannot reach the other side of a multi-sig, so to say. But I would like to ask, first of all, Gustav, regarding the funds in MakerDAO. I think currently we have approximately $600 million in tokens stored in your contract. And the people who are a little bit longer in the space remember perhaps something like the DAO 2016, which was quite nice on the one hand. On the other hand, yeah, it ended not that great. So there I would like to ask, let's say, how can we trust you? And after that, I would go to you, Leah.
Yeah, so basically, like the DAO hack was like there was this like big like decentralized organization that was like focused on like investment basically, and they got hacked and lost like a lot of money. And right now, if you look at CoinMarketCap and you scroll down a little bit, you find something called Ethereum Classic. And Ethereum Classic was basically a fork that happened afterwards, which was like Ethereum Classic community didn't believe that you should be able to reverse the hack. But the current Ethereum community, like the current Ethereum chain, they thought that the hacker shouldn't get away with the money. So basically now we have, I don't, like in regards to like percentage of the Ethereum supply we have in our contracts, we're not quite at the level they were at, but in terms of dollar value, we definitely have a lot now because the price of ETH is also different. So basically right now, yeah, we have like more than $600 million, which also means that, you know, if a hacker sees this pool in like a decentralized protocol, this is like the same as like a target on your back, right? Because if someone cracks your security and they'll be able to claim this amount of money, then they'll get filthy rich, right? So security is, you know, I said regulation earlier was like a very big priority. Security is like an even bigger one. So I believe just if you look at like the tech from back then, like in 2016 to now, in regards to like things such as like security audits and also formal verification, then we have come like a very long way. I also believe that today people are much more aware of like that you actually need to do these things, and it's not really that much of like, you know, like a utopian dream of just like community working together, but you actually know that there are for sure bad actors and they are looking for things to do, right? So basically right now, like we had like an incredibly long security roadmap, which started like almost a year before we even launched the version of the protocol we're running now. We've been going through different security audits from like top companies in the space, from different regions. So TrailBlazeBits, which is like one of the most recognized Western auditors. We also did an audit with PeckShield, which is, in our opinion, probably the best Chinese auditor. We've also been doing a full formal verification. Formal verification is a tool, or like a security auditing tool you use normally within software you build for like the pharmaceutical industry, or like space travel, aviation, where you really have like a tolerance, like you have a 0 error tolerance, right? Because if something goes wrong, I mean, people die, right? So formal verification, like you mathematically like specify what the protocol is supposed to do, and then you calculate every single possible outcome. So we've been running both with our own internal formal verification team as well as an external formal verification team, and have spent, you know, like so much time on this. We also had a bug bounty running, which is basically where like before you launch your project, you basically give like a big bounty. So we gave $50,000 to people who could find a critical bug. We actually got a guy who claimed one of the bounties, and this was at the same time as our audits were running as well. And the audits, they found the same mistake, like 2 or 3 days after this guy, so he actually got like 50K paid out. But basically we've been doing like an incredibly long security roadmap, and I believe like just our old version, single collateral DAI, which we started migrating away from November 18th, was probably the most audited project or protocol in the space. And then now the new one, we also expect this to be the case over like the next period of time. And yeah, we have like all of our audits are public, like everyone can verify the code, and we have like an ongoing security roadmap, so we still do ongoing formal verification on anything on the protocol.
Yeah, before I come to your questions, I wanted to ask Leah a similar question. Not about the risk, but as far as I understand, TinLake, it's a protocol where you can tokenize non-fungible real-world assets, and that is achieved via using oracles. Now, oracles is nice, but it's of course a little bit a trust issue. And to put the question a little bit provocantly, why should I trust you more than Tether?
Okay, so Tether, again, or like Tether is, also for those who don't know, it's also a stable coin that is pegged to the US dollar and claimed to be, like each Tether that's minted is backed by $1 US. And this project has often been criticized for its opaque resource management, and if this is really true that they have so much capacity, so or so much resources to actually back the amount that they have issued. So, and here I would say it is a little bit different. So basically with TinLake, companies can, for example, why they would use TinLake is they, for example, they send invoices out to their customers. They usually have to wait 30 to 60 to 90 days, depending on how big the company is. This can even extend to 5 months. But in the meantime, they have to pay their staff, pay taxes, etc. So what they often do is they take out loans to optimize their cash flow. And with Centrifuge, so the protocol where TinLake is built on top, Centrifuge is a peer-to-peer protocol which allows this verifiable exchange of documents. So if I run a node and send this to my customer, for example, they can attach a signature, so verify that this is an actual document that they received, and this status is anchored on Ethereum. So I have basically a fingerprint of that document. And if I, as a customer, I receive that document twice or 3 times, I would not sign this. So for the provenance of a document, I can make sure that the risk is minimized here. And then, of course, if you can basically bake in risk parameters into smart contracts. So if you have set risk parameters for a specific asset that you can use in TinLake, you can not just use invoices, but also we have been working together on hard money loans for in the real estate industry, for example. There as well, they have to undergo, or like they have to provide a certain, whoever deploys these smart contracts, they have to undergo a certain underwriting process, so they have to provide a risk assessment, and these risk parameters are baked into the protocol. So you can for sure increase transparency just for that, and it behaves a little bit differently than the Tether case. I'm not sure. You want to add something in this regard? Or?
No, I mean, I just wanted to like, it actually came out that Tether was under collateralized, but I just want to make that there. So basically, I don't know if you guys heard about that, but basically, like at this point, I think they were at like a $3 billion market cap, and it actually came out that they were like under collateralized like 30%, and then within 1 week, they raised $1 billion from Chinese investors to basically bail them out, and now they're going strong again. I think they're closing in on 5 billion. So like, I think this specific case about like Tether is that like for like a lot of people, like convenience still comes over decentralization, right? And I don't think that any of us in this room should just be like expecting that just because it's decentralized, like it will get success, because like the biggest successes in the crypto space right now are not decentralized, unless you like, of course, like count Bitcoin. But if you see all the places where Bitcoin is actually popular and where you actually are able to access this, then it's on the biggest exchanges, right? So like the biggest success stories in the crypto space today is still, you know, like the big centralized entities that sit in it. So I definitely think that we need to, you know, not be completely like blue-eyed about like decentralization, but I believe that we can offer better products.
Maybe I can just quickly add. And whoever is looking at this doesn't necessarily they don't have to trust Centrifuge that actually the collateral that is in there is really the collateral that's in there. If there's a lock for a specific asset, it is traceable on chain. So there is the proof already.
Thanks a lot. Now I have asked some questions which were on my heart. I think there were some questions. I think the first one was from also Bitwala. But
I'm not speaking for Bitwala, but I'm following Ben's advice to be skeptical about the value proposition of DeFi and take the customer's perspective. So I'm now the customer, and I heard the thing about the ocean here, the Romans
OpenSea.
OpenSea, and then I remember that Raphael said that centralized UX is something which at the moment is perhaps a thing, but in the future decentralized UX is going to win over that and win me as a customer. So, but if I bring that in context, what Roman just explained about the open seas, then I would say, oh my God, I would really be happy to have someone to call and say, hey, can you please call this other guy that he signs my transaction? I perhaps don't know them, but we are both customers of yours. I only see some address, but you will know him. Can you please remind him, send him an email? I think there is a level of value which a central counterparty on top of the DeFi can deliver. And obviously I'm working for Bitwala, so I believe that a little bit more. But still, I think for the normal customer who is not too technical, who just wants to have his financial product in the evening after a hard day of work and do a transaction and create a little bit of value by investing in something and doing something, he doesn't care. He just wants to write an email in the evening, and next I get a reply, yes, we take care of it, we send the other guy a reminder. And it works.
So that's more a feedback than a question, or?
Yeah, I want it to be controversial and discussion.
You want to?
Sorry, I just want to make sure, like, if I understand, like, what's like the value proposition of like something where you cannot just like go and complain and get like a transaction reversed or something like that, or how are we going to challenge that?
Having on
Okay, I
top
have
of
one quick
DeFi,
question back. Like, do you use Gmail?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
Have you ever managed to reach someone in Google?
I think so, yes.
Yes.
We have a company account, and yes.
But with your personal account, like
I never had a problem.
Yeah, I know, but that's what we will attempt. You know, that's the point.
Yeah, but
that's what I mean.
We just heard about the problem.
To like go a little bit further on, he had a problem with OpenSea, but like to go a little bit further, like with products like, for example, the G Suite, that it's quite unusual unless you're managing like a big corporate account that you will have a problem. So you have to like go and like require like personal help. What I believe will happen at some point is that, you know, FAQs and documentation and the user experience itself will be so simple that you will know the risks you face. Like, for example, if you send like a transaction to someone else's address or things like that, but that you won't necessarily need somebody like at the end of the phone in order to like fulfill one of these things that you want to do in a decentralized
but people are stupid.
I know.
Even educated people buy gold tokens from companies who don't exist. And there is no tokenized gold, nothing, and people put €1 billion in that. So that is happening. And obviously, like if you make the slickest interface, that at the end still will happen. And it's really great to have someone to call and write an email to. But if I would invest €1,000 in Gmail and they would not reply my email, there would be an escalation. I would get a reply from Gmail, pretty sure.
Sure, I think we also have to remember where we are. So, I mean, we are also still in very early days. Of course, UX is buggy, and of course, there are some issues that are not resolved. And it is really the question, what do you want to get out of it? For example, what I find like is a crazy advantage is that you can go on ISS, you can go on Aave or wherever you want to deposit liquidity, for example, and want to make interest. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to go through the process, you don't have to give all your data, you can just connect with your wallet and go again. So it really depends on what you want to get out of DeFi.
Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on which side you're on, I have now to wrap it a little bit faster up than expected because the pizza is getting cold. However, the people here who want to ask the panelists questions, I think you will stay here both for the pizza and for the talks. And I think, yeah, I should hand over the mic again to Ben, right?
So I want to say thank you so much to everyone, especially the audience, for decentralizing this panel and asking your own questions. Let's give a round of applause for Philip and the panelists. So in other news, we have a sign-up today at Bitwala. If you sign up, then you get 30 euros of free ether. And the winner of the Twitter hashtag is Diego. Okay, go eat pizza. Hey. Oh shit, sorry, one more thing. We are all fast-growing companies, and you are talented young individuals, so we want to give each company just 30 seconds to say what jobs are they hiring for. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are someone.
Hi, so we're currently looking for, if I recall right, an Android engineer, we're looking for a cryptographer, and as many Rust developers as possible, and additionally, a marketing manager.
Oh, we're competing. Okay, we're also looking for 2 Rust developers, for the unicorns, and
Okay, so we are looking for a DevOps engineer. We are having an internship open within product management in Copenhagen. We're looking for a Scrum Master, Senior Front-End Product Developer, Senior JavaScript Engineer, and if you speak Mandarin and Korean, we're looking for a Technical Account Manager in Asia.
Oh, I didn't know this was a hiring event. Well, we also have a few open positions. We're scaling up quite quick, so we're looking for a head of design, which is a big role to fill. We're looking for a head of HR, DevOps, engineers. We're always looking for working students and interns, so just go to our careers page and let us know.
Great.